In 1899, three Scandinavian immigrants, Jafed Lindeberg, Eric Lindblom, and John Bryntesen, made a discovery that would change the course of history. Their remarkable find on Anvil Creek in Nome, Alaska, sparked one of the greatest gold rushes in American history, attracting thousands of hopeful prospectors to the remote and rugged shores of Nome. But on July 10, 1899, tensions in Nome City reached a boiling point. Nearly 600 irate men gathered in the northern saloon for a miners' meeting, ready to declare all existing mining claims illegal, aiming to reopen some of Alaska's richest gold creeks for a restaking free for all. The crowd was incensed by what they perceived as an injustice. The Three Lucky Swedes, inexperienced young Scandinavians, had staked most of the best claims in the Nome mining district within just 7 days. This left thousands of prospectors, many destitute stampeders who had chased news of gold strikes from the Klondike to Nome without any claims. These men, having lost everything in their pursuit of fortune, found themselves stranded on the edge of the Bering Sea. Hungry and enraged, they believed that these aliens from Sweden had tricked them and stolen the rich gold claims right from under their noses. The Three Lucky Swedes were now not only fighting for their gold rights, but now risked being lynched by the angry mob. This is the story of the Nome Gold Rush and the Three Lucky Swedes. This is History with Magnus. But before we begin, remember to hit that subscribe button and put on all notifications so you don't miss my next video and blah blah blah. Let's get to it. In the late 19th century, North America was gripped by gold fever. The first significant gold rush occurred in San Francisco, where prospectors struck it rich, excavating an estimated 340,000 kilograms of gold and transforming the lives of many poor individuals. Meanwhile, the Klondike Gold Rush, which began in 1896, was still drawing attention. This rush led to the migration of approximately 100,000 prospectors to the Klondike region of Yukon. However, only 30 to 40% managed to complete the arduous journey over the mountains, and just a few hundred of these ultimately became wealthy. Some sources suggest that perhaps a few thousand people profited from the Klondike Gold Rush, but the vast majority did not find substantial wealth, and many lost everything in their quest. Nels Hultberg, a Swedish missionary who caught gold fever, played a crucial role in establishing the first permanently settled gold mining camp at Council City after his prospecting party struck gold in 1898. That summer, still gripped by gold fever, Reverend Hultberg organized another expedition to search for gold. This party included a Swedish coal miner named John Bryntesen and 3 other companions. While traveling west along the coast of the Seward Peninsula in a small boat, a storm forced them to take cover at the mouth of a winding river, where they lost most of their supplies in the surf. Unbeknownst to them, they had landed at the mouth of the Snake River, camping right on top of some of Alaska's richest gold-bearing ground. Although the group began washing for gold at various spots in the river, they initially found nothing. However, while alone, Reverend Hultberg discovered gold and realized the area had excellent gold prospects. When Hultberg rejoined the party, he falsely told them there was no gold in the area, seemingly wanting to keep the discovery to himself. With this misleading information, the party continued west, leaving behind the richest valley in northwestern Alaska without staking a single claim. John Bryntesen later returned to Nome with the belief that there was gold in the Snake River. Whether this was because Hultberg confided in him about the gold, or Bryntesen made a discovery on his own, is unknown. Unfortunately, due to poor health, Hultberg had to abandon his gold-seeking endeavors and, ultimately, was not one of the Three Lucky Swedes. The following year, when John Bryntesen returned to Nome, he partnered with another Swede, Eric Lindblom, and Norwegian Jafet Isaacson Lindeberg. Jafet Lindeberg was born in Troms, northern Norway, and in his youth, He tried prospecting for gold in northern Norway, though without any luck. In the autumn of 1897, the U.S. Congress decided to send help to the gold miners in Klondike. The gold rush had escalated, attracting thousands of people unfamiliar with the harsh climate. Authorities feared a humanitarian disaster with potential famine, epidemics, and lawlessness. To address these concerns, it was decided to ship reindeer from Norway to Klondike for food, clothing, and transport. And on February 4, 1898, Lindeberg left the port of Alta on a ship heading for New York City. Unfortunately, the Klondike reindeer project was a disaster, with most of the animals starving to death long before they reached Dawson City. However, for Lindeberg, the trip to America became his ticket to fortune. Upon arriving in Alaska, he resigned from his post and became a full-time gold prospector. The Norwegian and the two Swedes now formed a partnership to search for gold and founded a company, the Pioneer Mining Company. In early September 1898, the three men set out for the Snake River, a largely unexplored area where Berteson and Lindblom had previously identified promising gold prospects that summer. It didn't take long for the trio to discover gold, not just a few nuggets, but in substantial quantities. Realizing they had struck it rich, the Scandinavians cleverly chose to keep their find a secret. Instead of announcing their discovery, they swiftly staked most of the best claims in the area within just 7 days. After securing their claims, they returned to Dexter's trading post with a shotgun shell full of gold dust. However, they had made a critical error. Due to their inexperience, the trio had staked the claims incorrectly. The claims were not the right size, were improperly marked, and they had failed to organize a miners' meeting to establish a mining district or appoint a recorder to officially record the claims. Until these steps were completed, their mining claims were not legally valid. To rectify their mistakes, the three men invited veteran miner Gabe W. Price from California to accompany them back and help them properly stake their claims. According to tradition, at least 6 men were required to call a miners' meeting. To meet this requirement, Price and the Three Lucky Swedes invited the Norwegian Dr. Kittelsen and a Lapp reindeer herder named J.S.E. Tornanses. Together, these 6 men officially reorganized the company, this time correctly. Within just 5 days, using only 2 crude wooden rockers and water heated over a fire to thaw the frozen ground, they extracted nearly $2,000 worth of placer gold from the creeks. The men wanted to keep the gold discovery a secret, but this proved impossible. Gabe Price wrote to a friend in Council City about the new gold found and informed his boss in San Francisco about the rich claim he received on Anvil Creek. Presumably, the Scandinavians were also talking, as word of the strike spread through the late months of 1898 and early 1899. Prospectors who had missed out on gold in Klondike now flooded into Nome by the thousands. By the spring of 1899, over 1,500 claims had been staked. By July 1899, of the estimated 3,000 men in Nome, about 1,000 were extremely poor and lacked the means to provide for themselves. They set up their tents among piles of driftwood on the Nome beach, the only unclaimed space near the town site at the mouth of the Snake River, unaware that the biggest gold deposit was right under their feet. The Scandinavians and other alleged foreigners in the district became natural scapegoats for their anger and frustration. The 3 Scandinavians and their associates had secured most of the best land, leading the luckless prospectors to believe that no new prospectors, especially non-Americans, should be so fortunate.
I don't see no Americans. I see trespassers. What have they done? Name one thing they've contributed.
The destitute mob of prospectors justified their claim by arguing that immigrants had no right to stake claims on U.S. soil, or that the Scandinavians had illegally staked too many claims for themselves and their friends. Newcomers automatically jumped every claim that bore a name ending in Sons or Berg, or had 3 consonants in a row. Claim jumping, amounted to little more than blackmail, as the true owners preferred to pay off the rival claimants and continue mining the rich ground rather than face potentially years-long legal battles. Some claims were targeted and extorted by over half a dozen jumpers against one single man. The conflict between early claim stakers and claim jumpers peaked on the night of July 10, 1899. The claim jumpers were so emboldened that they called a miners' meeting at the Northern Saloon tent to declare all existing mining locations in the Nome District void and illegal, aiming to reopen all the creeks for staking again. They even posted men on Anvil Mountain, 4 miles away, to wait for a bonfire signal indicating the passage of the resolutions, voiding the claims of the Swedes and other original stakers. Once the signal was received, the latecomers planned to race and seize the best claims in the district for themselves and their partners. The agitators' plan was foiled by the quick action of Lieutenant O.L. Spaulding of the U.S. Army. He and a half-dozen soldiers dispersed the meeting at bayonet point and warned the prospectors that resetting the mining claims and threatening current claim owners with a mob would not be tolerated. The claim owners applauded the lieutenant, while the would-be stakers were outraged. Each day, the situation grew more menacing and hostile, prompting the army to forbid anyone from carrying firearms or revolvers in the district. But the newcomers hadn't given up yet and gathered a mob of nearly 600 men in a saloon, ready to declare all existing mining claims in the Nome District void and illegal, and in this way to reopen some of Alaska's richest gold creeks for a restaking free-for-all. The newcomers were angry, saying that these aliens from Sweden had tricked the Americans and stolen all the rich gold claims out from under their noses. The meeting ultimately failed, and just a few days later, right when mass violence seemed inevitable, a second gold strike occurred. This time they found gold in the sand, right underneath the stampeders' tents. The Nome beach was so rich with gold that one could almost pick it up like small seashells. And this time, you didn't need to stake a claim. Everyone could access it legally. The miners called it the poor man's paradise, and the second Nome Gold Rush began. Small teams of 2 or 3 men lined up almost shoulder to shoulder with homemade wooden rockers along the beaches, finding gold just a few feet below the surface. In its first issue, Nome's first newspaper bragged about the town. It has grown as if by magic. It is true is built upon sand, but the sand is golden, and it promises to be the greatest gold camp that has ever been known in the history of gold mining. The gold findings on the beach turned out to be even bigger than in the creeks around Nome, and everybody could pick up the gold legally and keep it. This meant that many could access the gold, but no one would be able to collect as much gold as the Three Lucky Swedes. There were too many people digging on the beach. But it was enough for many people to go home a little richer than when they came to Alaska, making it a sort of success for them. Between 1900 and 1909, Nome's population peaked at an estimated 20,000, but by the 1909 census, the population had dropped to 2,600. The gold rush in Nome was over. Among the Nome prospectors, the Three Lucky Swedes made significant fortunes, and by around 1920, their mining company had accumulated $20 million, the equivalent to $314 million in today's money. In the 1920s, Lindeberg sold his share in the Pioneer Mining Company to Wendell P. Hammond and earned the nickname the richest Norwegian in America. Bryntesen purchased a farm in Santa Clara County in California, which became known as the Prune Yard, and retired, while Lindblom invested his mining fortune in banks, transportation, and real estate. Unfortunately, most miners didn't make it rich, and many of those who did squandered away their money drinking and gambling, with several reports of thousands of $1899 that were lost at the poker table. Other than the few people that got lucky, most people that made a fortune in Nome were profited by providing essential services and supplies to the prospectors, such as the merchants and store owners who sold mining equipment, clothing, food, and other supplies at extremely inflated prices. The hoteliers and restaurateurs provided lodging and food, and the transportation companies offered passage to and from Nome, as well as shipping of supplies, often charging premium rates. But also bankers and financiers who facilitated the flow of money, offered loans, and invested in profitable ventures became very rich. The legacy of the Three Lucky Swedes, which of course should have been 2 Swedes under Norwegian, lives on as a testament to the adventurous spirit of the Nome Gold Rush. If you enjoyed this dive into the history of the Nome Gold Rush and the remarkable Three Lucky Swedes, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you don't miss exciting tales from the annals of history. And I hope to see you in the next one.